Welcome everybody to another installment here on The Special Educator. I'm your host, Tom Hankins, instructor, tutor, consultant, and musician. This is going to be the second in a series about personal stories, loosely related around gun culture. This one's going to be on an option called archery, something that does not involve firearms but does help with the discipline. Let me go over our business stuff. Website is tsegrp.org. Our email, host@tsegrp.org. Facebook, X, Rumble, and now Medium.com at tsegrp. YouTube at tsedgrp. Instagram and LinkedIn are The Special Educator. Before we get going, hey everybody, little tags down at the bottom asking you like, comment, save, share, follow, and subscribe. So, basic premise of this video was recorded a while back, so it's going to have some old information on it that you see, but I'm just going to let it run uninterrupted. Story is, I had a very long process of getting exposed to gun culture, and one of the things I gravitated towards very early on, because my parents are very concerned about me handling dangerous things, so archery took over. If the first video that was part of this, you can look that up for the history behind it. But for right now, let's get this going, and I'm just going to let you watch this without interruption. Before we get started, please remind you, safety first. Anytime you're using something that's potentially dangerous, I don't care what it is, even if it's not a firearm, safety first. This does apply to archery as well. So at the top left are a bunch of the disciplines I was in as a child. And as I had growing up, I've been off and on again with these over the years. So now I'm recommending to other people, parents, students, instructors, some of the things that I enjoyed and that worked for me. If you know the background behind The Special Educator, I'm not going to get too far into it. Please look at other material I've put out there. But in this particular case, let's just focus on this particular topic at hand. I'm going to go over here. I used AI to compose a general synopsis of the different types of archery related topics and items. I'm started with the types of bows. I talk about arrows, some types of releases and things like that, and accessories, and ultimately the uses from competition to hunting applications. I'm not going to be very specific about this. I'm going to be very broad canvassing approach here. And let's just start with the types of bows that are out there. There's 4 general types of bows that are used today. In no particular order of importance or occurrence, there are recurve bows, compound bows, long bows, and crossbows. Now you'll notice with each of these, and I will post all of this out there for everybody to look at, there are some brands that I asked to be recommended for each of these categories. This is not a summary, an endorsement, or a recommendation of a particular brand or item in any way, shape, or form. This is just to give you a general, overview of it. Let's get over to some pictures here first of the recurve bows. So this is a modern recurve bow. I just selected photos from an online search. This particular one shows a young lady holding what you and I would consider a modern recurve bow. What makes it modern is the laminated riser, the adjustable tension, the target style sights. I'm just letting you know this is a little bit above just a basic recurve bow. The compound bow, as you will see, is a totally different design. Now this represents a hunting bow. So a compound bow is going to have 2 wheels, and usually they are offset in their dimension, and we can explain that in another video, but right now you're going to see basically 2 wheels at either end. These parts here that are added on are accessories. We can go through those later. But the whole general idea is you are using the compound bow to increase the release speed of the arrow. So what ends up happening is the wheels pull on each other and it snaps that arrow forward at very high velocity relative to a recurve bow. A variant of the recurve bow, if you go back to the text here, scroll down, long bows and crossbows, but let's talk about a long bow. Now, this is probably the most traditional, oldest variant of a bow. This is where everything started. You'll notice there's nothing fancy, no fancy sights, no fancy wheels. You actually use your finger to hold the arrow up, and you can see it's going to require a lot more skill. You're not relying on technology to be accurate with this type of a bow. And finally, there is the crossbow. Now, I'm using one in a hunting application, but basically you're turning a compound bow horizontally, so you have two wheels at either end. You use, they call them bolts, not so much arrows, and they are launched in a horizontal manner, but it's set up on a profile or a frame, if you will, that's much like a rifle. So for those of you that are hunters and used to hunting with firearms, with guns, shotguns, or rifles, this is an option. Just be aware, not all of these are legal for hunting or use in all states, towns, counties, things like that. There are restrictions, so we'll get to that at the end too. Next, we want to talk about the types of arrows. Now, I'll go from least traditional to most traditional, carbon arrows are likely going to be considered the most advanced. They are very lightweight. They're generally intended for high precision and speed because they have low mass to them. They generally travel at a much higher velocity when released than do other arrows. Aluminum arrows, very, very well known. Not as modern as carbon arrows, but very consistent, reliable. They are a little bit heavier, and they do offer a little bit better penetration for hunting. So you will find a lot of hunting applications might favor aluminum arrows, but again, everybody has their preference. Wooden arrows are just like they sound. A wooden shaft, they've got the feathers if you want to call it that, but they have the fletching on them just like any of the other ones. And these are really more of a work of art. Long bows are the ones you're going to see using these. Very, 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 very elegant way to do. Think of, you know what? I'm going to say longbow archery with wooden shafts is not unlike fly fishing is to what we do. It's a very traditional way of going about it. So let me give you a little image of some arrows. This isn't going to be terribly great because I had to enlarge it a bit. But you're going to see to the right your more modern arrows, your carbon arrows, your aluminum arrows kind of in the middle, and your wooden arrows and more traditional stuff to the far left. Notice longer fletching, longer feathers on the wooden arrows. Better stabilization because they're heavier and they're not as precisely engineered as the aluminum and carbon arrows. Let's keep moving forward. Now, the types of targets that are out there, you're going to find when you're not hunting, these are just targets you're going to use for practice. There are standard bag targets, very familiar, very common. These are the ones you're going to find at most types of competitions. They have the rings on them. I'll show you pictures of these here in a moment. They're foam block targets, very, very popular because they can last a long time and they usually can be shot at from multiple directions. And then you have your 3D targets. Now, 3D targets are a lifelike representation of whatever game you're going to go for. If you're really into hunting, 3D targets might be an ideal way to practice for you. So let me get over to the types of targets. I do have an image here. Let's go here. Types of targets. Okay, so typical range target is going to have these types of circles on it. There's all sorts of different types of looks to them. But this is going to be let's get this. This is a nice looking image. That's a bag target. So you generally hang it up. You got a couple of hangers there, and very good for outdoor use. I mean, you could use them for indoor, but they're really ideally suited for outdoor use. A block target or a foam block target. Now these can get expensive. I'm just doing this here. This is considered this happens to be a brand, the Block, but there's other brands similar to this. They are held together with a wrapping, and you can shoot at them usually from multiple sides, the front, the back, and the sides, sometimes the bottom and the top as well. Point is, these are very versatile targets. They have different types of what I'll call patterns on them. So you got one there shaped like a dartboard. Let's go to a 3D target here. This is a good idea. I like this one. So a 3D target is just that. It is three-dimensional. It is meant to represent a real game animal, and there are inserts in here that are reusable. That is where you shoot, and that is supposed to represent the critical areas for the vital organs, the heart and the lungs. And that is what you want to practice with for those applications. Next, I want to go over accessories, sights, stabilizers, and release aids. Again, these are just accessories. These are not all of the accessories you may need or want, but just to give you an idea, sights definitely help with accuracy. Stabilizers also help, and release aids just help you with the smooth release of the arrow. Everything adds to accuracy. So let me give you an idea. I'm going to go back to this compound bow here and show you. So this up here is a sight. This is a bow sight, one type of bow sight. There's a whole bunch of different types. You have a stabilizer here, okay? So this is a sight, this is a stabilizer. This happens to actually be a little quiver, so you can mount arrows onto the frame, or the riser as they call it. And there's also a little rest here that the arrow will rest on. I'm just pointing that out to you. Now, as far as a release, let's go here. Okay, there's a couple of different types of releases. I'm not going to get too far into it, but there's types that will strap around your wrist. Now, that's the type that I started out using, and they have different types of little claws and hooks here, but this will strap around the wrist, and you use this as a trigger. Here's the one I used years ago. I let my sons use it now, but this straps around the wrist. It uses Velcro, and then the release itself is actually used by the finger. So you put your finger on here, left or right hand, it makes no difference. There's a claw, pull back on it, and you see it releases. That is probably one of the simpler mechanical releases. You'll notice there are some that have absolutely, well, here's a nice picture. Real cheapy from Temu. $8.29. Let's go here. Take a look. So that gives you an idea. They don't have to be expensive. There are some that are very expensive. And then there are the type that require, I'll show you this one. I like this one. Yeah, this one's good. This is a mechanical release that has no strap around the wrist and is finger release through pressure. And again, just another item. That's something you're going to use for hunting or target shooting. Let's get back here. Now, types of competitions. Now, I am a target shooter. I do not hunt, but there's target archery, which is generally in the Olympics. Circular targets at varying distances is what you're dealing with. Field archery. Targets are set up at varying distances. That it can be done inside or outside, honestly. Same thing with 3D. A lot of it is outdoor for hunting, but there are 3D archery competitions that are done indoors as well. Hunting applications. Bow hunting is very common out there, and I've seen people do from medium game down to small game. I've even seen people do bow fishing, which kind of sounds like a lot of fun. Literally shooting fish in a barrel. Anyway, the types of game people go after, as you see, vary in size. This is what I want to talk about, regulations. Different states, counties, towns have different policies on hunting, different rules on where you can use a bow and arrow. For example, I live in an area where you cannot buy a crossbow. It's illegal to have one. And technically, I'm not supposed to release an arrow. I think it's within 500 feet of any residence besides my own. And being in a subdivision type of development, that rules that out. So I'd have to go to a target. I'd have to go to a range to get it done. And I'll talk about that here in a sec. Let's get some photos of ranges. There are indoor and outdoor ranges. It is for kids. It is for adults. And I'm just going to go through some images here that you can see. It can be as fancy or as simple as you want. Now, I have access here to indoor and outdoor ranges in Massachusetts, up where I live. So I'm in no shortage of areas to practice at. The other thing I want to show you, too, is about videos. So let's do one more thing. Social media. Now, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, I'm sure there's all sorts of platforms out there have published videos on archery from all sorts of angles. Let's go here. So whether you're into competition, you're into hunting, you're into any type of bow, any type of equipment, coaching and advice, stuff like this, plenty of media out there online. Again, I'm not here to suggest anything or name a brand or a retailer. That's not what I'm here to do. Just trying to tell you, this is something that can be fun and very good for both your body physically and your mind because of the concentration needed. One last time back to this. Now, like I said, I'm going to post this on all the sites that this will appear on. It'll also be on the website. Let me bring back the camera here. All right, before I get going, final thoughts on this. My initial opinion, my perspective on this is that archery is a viable discipline to get involved with. It gives you physical strength skills. It gives you coordination skills, both coarse and fine motor skill development. Requires discipline and focus. It requires practice, and it requires technique to do it well. And as such, I find it to be a very effective tool as a hobby for anybody, but in particular, some people that, again, thought of the special educators. We talk about people that have learning disabilities and had issues or still have issues. It could be for parents, teachers, or other educators. This is one discipline that worked for me when I was struggling. It gave me a means to focus. It gave me something to fixate on. And part of my mild OCDness was attended to because of this, as long as some of the other things up here. But I find archery to be just something very, very good to get into. Again, I've said enough about it. So once again, remember safety first. Anytime you're messing around with something that is dangerous, don't care what it is, just be careful. All the disciplines I was in, I will give other postings on the type of stuff I've been into. If you want to reach out to me or the special educator in general, please, all the details at the bottom left here. Most prolific is probably going to be Facebook, X, and Rumble at TSEGRP, even though YouTube at TSEDGRP is going to have a lot of videos as well. The website, tsegrp.org, and email host at tsegrp.org. Finally, Instagram, The Special Educator. I have linked my Instagram and my Facebook accounts, so generally what shows up on one will show up on another. Once again, I'm Tom Hankins, former competitive shooter, instructor, tutor, consultant, and musician. I hope this video finds you safe, and until the next installment, I'd like you to take care. Jill.